Three typical average kids inside a haunted mansion? Let's talk about Big Bad Beetleborgs, because if you grew up in the 90s, you know the show was wild. But somehow, everybody want to act like it was just a fever dream or something. Nah man, this show was real and it was actually fire, but it was like the kid that showed up late to the party and by the time it got there, Power Rangers already had everybody's attention. Like, the Beetleborgs pulled up with all this swagger, right? You had these three kids who stumble into a creepy mansion. And let's be real, if it was me, I'm out of there the second the door creaks. But these kids, they stick around and they end up freeing this goofy ghost dude named Flabber. My man Flabber looked like Elvis got zapped by a magic wand and turned into a blue genie. And the crazy part? He actually hooks them up with superpowers because they wanted to be superheroes. They were based on this in-universe comic called Beetleborgs, so they're basically fanboys who hit the jackpot. You got Drew, Joe, and Roland, the crew. Drew's the leader, he becomes the blue stinger Beetleborg, all confident, cool like he's the big man on campus. Joe's his little sister, but she's the red striker Beetleborg, and listen, she wasn't playing. Always ready to throw down like she got something to prove. And then there's Roland, the green hunter Beetleborg, who's like the chill one but will definitely handle business when it's time. And yo, when they switched to Beetleborgs Metallix, they upgraded like they got a new phone plan or something. Shiny new suits, better weapons, and now they got the power of metals like chromium and titanium. And let me tell you, those suits? Clean. They came through looking like armored up sports cars. But here's the thing, man, you can't talk about Beetleborgs without mentioning the whole Hillhurst Mansion squad. It's like the monster version of the Addams Family up in there. You got Flabber the ghost, then Fangula the vampire who's acting like Count Dracula's awkward cousin, Wolfgang the werewolf who's basically the big hairy dog that never calms down, Mums the mummy who's just trying to hold himself together, literally, and then Frankenbeans the Frankenstein monster who's just a big old child. Like, this dude's more lovable than scary. But see, here's the problem, Beetleborgs had the formula, but Power Rangers was out here already dominating. You couldn't compete with Power Rangers, the suits, the Zords, the monsters, the whole nine. So yeah, the Beetleborgs kinda played backseat. Like, the Power Rangers were riding first class, and Beetleborgs were backing coach like, yo, y'all got snacks up there? But you know what? Beetleborgs held its own. Their powers were based on insects. You had beetles, obviously, but also ladybugs, dragons, you name it. And I swear, if you were a kid back then, you probably had at least one Beetleborg toy. The toys were actually dope. They had action figures, role-play weapons, even those beetle bonders they used to transform. And yeah, they had Happy Meal toys, but it was like they were fighting for scraps because Power Rangers had all the big deals. McDonald's, Burger King, everybody wanted a piece of that Power Rangers money, so Beetleborgs got what was left. But the toys were slept on, man. They had these deluxe figures that actually transformed, they had vehicles, play sets, everything. But it's like, when you have a second option, you don't get the same shine. And the fighting styles? Oh man, this is where it gets kinda weird. Power Rangers had all that flashy martial arts stuff, but Beetleborgs was more like straight up brawling. They'd throw hands when necessary, but it wasn't like they were out here with crazy spin kicks and karate chops. They were more like, yo, I got this power armor on, I'm just gonna rush you and hope for the best. But that's part of what made them different, man. They weren't trained warriors, they were kids. They had to figure it out as they went along. And compared to other shows like VR, which was basically Power Rangers but with virtual reality, Beetleborgs had its own vibe. It had humor, monsters, crazy characters, but it also had that underdog feeling. Like, it never quite broke through the way Power Rangers did, but it was doing something different. And I gotta say, the Metallix suits were on par with some of the best suits in Power Rangers history. They might not have had Zords, but the Beetleborgs had heart. And yeah, maybe the villains were goofy sometimes, but it was part of the charm. You had the Magnivores first, Vexor, Noxic, Typhus, all of them trying to take over the world from some comic book dimension. You had Nucus and his crazy art gallery of evil. And I gotta say, as a kid, some of those monsters were actually creepy. But here's the thing, man, the show didn't get the respect it deserved. It only lasted 2 seasons, but it made its mark. You look at the fanbase today, and there's still people riding for Beetleborgs. The toys, the suits, the characters, it all left an impact. And when you compare it to Power Rangers, sure, it didn't have the same reach, but it had its own thing going on. Power Rangers was like the straight-A student that got all the awards, while Beetleborgs was the creative kid in the back of the class just drawing cool stuff and hoping somebody notices. And you know what? A lot of people noticed. It was quirky, it was funny, it had style, and it had its own lane. So yeah, Beetleborgs might have been slept on, but that don't mean it wasn't great. And I feel like we gotta give it the flowers it deserves, man, cause sometimes being the underdog is what makes you special. So shout out to Beetleborgs, you might not have been Power Rangers, but you were still something special.